Alrighty, you guys, what is up? We are here to talk about episode 5 of the Twisted-Wonderland anime that just dropped today. So we're on episode 5, which puts us into the back half of the season, as it is expected to go 8 episodes. And for episode 5, it was titled A Mealtime Chat, which coincidentally, as most of these episodes have, to some extent, it shares its title with chapter 9 of book 1 in the game. And as for anyone who may or may not know, as far as the game is concerned, the heartslabyul section of the story is called the Rose Red Tyrant, as everything that has to do with heartslabyul pretty much has to do with Alice in Wonderland. As always, we have a little recap of kind of how the last episode finished off. So it cuts to them in the cafeteria. Ace kind of complaining about having the collar, justifiably to an extent, but him kind of bad mouthing Riddle, and then that's where the last episode ended up with like, oh, please elaborate on your thoughts on this, and it turns out to be Riddle behind them. Then from there, as usual, it cuts to the opening theme, which is "Piece of My World," and as always, as well, the ending theme for the episode is "Obedience." We get a few comments here and there from Riddle, Trey, Cater, Ace, Deuce. I don't remember if I said Ace, but yeah, they're all basically talking, not necessarily in circles, but Riddle, says perhaps is being far too lenient with the students, so and he grabs Ace by the collar, so a little bit of a domineering presence there, but throughout the episode, we do get a bit of a view into some of the other rules that Heartslabyul goes by. We get rule number 271. One shall leave the table within 15 minutes of completing their lunch. We get rule 339, which is should one partake in the post-meal beverage, it shall be lemon tea with 2 sugar cubes. We get rule number 186, one shall never eat hamburger on a Tuesday. And we get one extra rule a little bit right around the end of the episode. We get rule number 200. Well, we get 2 more rules actually. We get rule number 256. There will be no drinking of honey sweetened lemonade after 8 p.m. And we don't get the full statement of this particular rule, but rule number 153 has to do with only certain teas they are able to drink once it gets dark. As at the end of the episode, Cater was like, "Okay, I'll go make some tea to try and help calm Riddle down," as they go and talk to him about him basically collaring everybody. But that's where in game and in anime they're like, Trey says, make sure it's herbal, not black, because rule 153 says that there's certain teas we can't have after dark. So they don't specify what the teas they can or can't have are, but apparently, by process of elimination, they cannot have black tea, but they can have herbal tea. So, but that's kind of the basics of the rules that we get to see throughout the episode itself. And Ace, in referring to Riddle, he calls him a power tripping pretty boy. And after that whole dynamic in the cafeteria, we do get a pretty cool scene as we start to see some of the blotting animation for Riddle's Mage Pen and Mage Stone. So we do get to see that in the anime as well as in the game, and obviously they're depicting the manga, I would assume, as well. But it was pretty cool that they find. Wait, did they show it in some of the? I'm trying to remember. I think they might have shown it in the last one. I could be wrong, but anyway, so we do get to see a bit more of the overblot aspect, as well as we get to see the blot filling more of the background with the mage stone and everything. Then from there we have them going on about the chestnut tart that Ace is planning to make for Riddle as an attempt to kind of smooth things over. if nothing else, just to kind of play by the rules. And as we go into all this, we do have Trey mentioned that they'll need a bunch of them. He says 2 to 300. And then for all this, we do have them go into the botanical garden, which is a bit starts a bit differently than the game itself, as they go through the woods at first, and there doesn't really show them go through the woods. It just kind of shows them going over to the botanical garden. And as they're walking around, we do see that Yu steps on Leona's tail, and right as he is about to, kind of like roundhouse kick Yu, he gets interrupted by Ruggy, or Rugi as I've gotten used to calling him. It's a little weird hearing some of the names just because you're like, okay. I mean, they say Ruggy, they do say Ruggy in the game, so I mean, I know that's his name, but reading it, I'm like, okay, it's Rugi or something, but anyway, that's neither here nor there as to that aspect. But we do have that little thing that does go into the stuff of the game as well, that you do have. You don't fight him in the game just yet per se, but you do have that he was about to like attack you for stepping on his tail. And we do have Leona drop a line. He says, "Be prepared," which is kind of the theme song for Scar when he's with the hyenas and stuff. So he's like, "No, be prepared next time you enter my territory," type deal. And then after that, we have Ruggy leading him away towards class. Then after the collection of all the chestnuts and everything, we have a not cutesy. It doesn't really change the animation per se, but just get little like cooking show motif as they go into what Trey calls Chestnut Tarts 101. Sadly, they did not really wear any of the Culinary Crucible outfits. That would have been kind of fun to see, but it makes sense since at that point they hadn't really dropped the Culinary Crucible. And then as they're preparing the tart and tarts, because I think they show one whole and then the one that they tried. But we have as the joke that Trey plays on them in the game as well. He mentions putting Walrus brand young oyster sauce into the tart, and Walrus brand being the walrus that goes with the oysters in Alice in Wonderland, and them running around as they get drenched by a wave and everything. So we have a little more of a nod to some of the other Disney properties that they're being involved with all this. And then as they needed more milk to be able to finish the tart, we do have you, Deuce, and Grim head off to the school store, and we get the actual in-anime appearance outside of the opening theme for Sam, who is the manager, proprietor, whatever you want to call it, for the mystery shop that is on campus. Sam is basically a I don't know if to say reimagining per se, but like his whole appearance is a take off Dr. Facilier. I don't know how, I haven't seen the movie per se, so I don't know how they say his name, but he's based off the magic. I would assume the villain from The Princess and the Frog, so he's based off him. So that's his whole look, and he drops his special line of "in stock now," so that you typically hear him say that throughout the game and everything as well. And then as they are returning back towards the kitchen, we see some of the Deuce get into a fight with these guys that crash into him and end up breaking the eggs that they were taking back towards the kitchen. And we get a little more of background on Deuce, which does tie in with some of the stuff for book 7 as well as book 1, but it's stuff that he mentions in book 1 that he bleached his hair blonde. He was a bit of a thug, if you want to call it that, just kind of getting into fights and skipping school, stuff like that. And one thing of note for this is that in regards to, because in the game they mentioned the blast cycles and everything, but in the anime it's just called Magic Wheel, which is kind of not as cool a name, I feel personally. That blast cycle sounds better than Magic Wheel, but in regards to whatever reason they chose to, they dubbed it as Magic Wheel for the English language dub of the anime. And then during this whole altercation, we have no, because Deuce apparently thinks that like the because he sees the yolks after the eggs crack and everything. He's like, damn, these eggs didn't get the chance to turn into chicks and stuff. So that's when Yukan is like, they wouldn't have been able to turn into chickens because they're not fertilized eggs. And then that's when Deuce kind of spirals for the rest of the episode, which is just honestly a few minutes from that point. But basically, that's where it goes on into him, having believed for roughly 16 years or so, since that's kind of his age at the time, that the eggs can pretty much just turn into chickens. And then during this part as well, partially once they're kind of finishing with the tart, we do get to see an image of Kid Riddle trying, one of Trey's desserts for pretty much the first time since his mom was super strict and everything. So Trey and Riddle playing was kind of what helped him get out of his shell a bit. But then all that stuff happens, and we have now, as of today, seen 3 unique spells. So we have Off With Your Head from Riddle. For obvious reasons, we've seen that a couple times. We've seen Cater's Split Card spell, so that's him being able to create replicas of himself. And we now have Trey's unique spell, which is called Paint the Roses. Since, as far as how he uses it in the episode, he asks them what kind of their favorite food is. He casts his spell and then has them try the tart again, and then that's where the tart takes on the flavor of the food that they had said. For Ace, he said cherry pie or hamburgers were his favorite. Grim obviously said canned tuna. Deuce said omelet rice basically, and Yuken said grilled fish with something. I forgot what his was, but Use does not go into context as far as the game chapters, but it is that part of the section is still played out in the game as well. And then, as it's getting late, so they're like, "Oh, we'll do the tart thing tomorrow because it's gonna be the unbirthday." And then that's when Cater and Trey head back to heartslabyul, and they go into what I assume is kind of like the main lounge area of the dorm, and that's where they see that there's like a bunch of people with the Off With Your Head collar, and that's where we get kind of the last 2 rules of there were 256 and 153 of 256 being there will be no drinking of honey sweetened lemonade after 8 p.m. and rule number 153 with the certain teas after dark that we don't get the full rundown of, but we did get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We got 5 rules of heartslabyul's stuff today, actually, so that was a pretty interesting thing. Oh, actually, we didn't really get the breakdown of Paint the Roses. So the way Trey explains his spell both in game, in the events and stuff, is that he is able to override the characteristics of objects. So that's why he was able to make the tart taste differently. So it affects kind of like the senses. So sight, smell, taste, stuff like that. He's able to change things, albeit temporarily, but he is able to do it. And then that's where we get another line of Cater of it would possibly be like useful when he said having tea with the ladies or something to that effect, which given that Night Raven is an all boys school basically, that I assume is in town or when they're back home, because there's no girls at the academy technically. And then to finish off the episode, we do get the kind of final adding in of like Riddle. He's just there in, I guess, like his room or like an office or whatever for the house warden, and we get to see a bit more of that kind of like overblotting animation with the Mage Stone again. And that's where the episode itself ends. We have the ending theme of obedience, and then we have the little chibi paper doll theater, which is just pretty much taking place in Ramshackle. We have Ace, Deuce, Grim, Yuken, then the ghosts appear. Deuce is basically only there to like chaperone Ace and make sure things are okay. No, nothing further bad happens. Then the ghosts appear. They end up playing cards. I'm actually not sure what game they played. I don't recall them saying what game they ended up playing with the cards, but Yuken being the first to win, then Ace, and then Grim and Deuce are as the thing kind of wraps and ends with their little chibi theater, is that they're kind of going back and forth of like pretty much losing and not losing. So it doesn't give quite the proper answer as to who wins per se, but as it keeps going, it's basically ending in a tie. But and then it cuts to the end and credits roll. But as far as this episode compares to the game, we have two twist tunes that happened. We have from chapter 10, start their prep work, which is granted they're all stuff with the cafeteria, the tart, stuff, the kitchen, them in the kitchen. So we have chapter 10, that twist tune title being start the prep work, and from chapter 13 being titled make a chestnut tart. And the episode basically just covers episodes 9 through 14 of book 1. So this next episode, episode 6, will most likely cover 15 through 20, maybe 21, and 20 through 22, 23, or 24, and then that last episode being the last and the kind of little starting section of the Book of Savannah Claw, maybe. But we still have a couple weeks from time of recording for the anime to drop. We do have like 3 weeks, so pretty much like mid-December. And then we do have one singular line that was used in game that would have been fun to use. It's when they're right around when they're going to make the chestnut tart twist tune. Trey says, "Let's get this tarty started." So let's get this party started. So that was kind of funny in game, which different things they do don't use. That doesn't really matter, I guess, much per se. The anime itself is still doing things well so far, and as far as my take on it, certain things are kind of like not necessarily hit or miss, but like the thing with the dwarf's mind, it was changed to enchanted mind, stuff like that. But I would say that's kind of the only real, for sure, I don't know if say critique, but the one kind of detail that I'm a little more hung up on compared to everything else. But we'll see how things go for the next episode in about a week's time. And for the meantime, that'll be it for this one, you guys. As always, thank you so much for joining. Feel free to share and like the videos, subscribe to the channels, all that good shit truly helps out and is appreciated. As always, thank you guys so much for your time. We'll catch you on the next one. Peace out.